Hey, I'm Matt, and I'm headed to work. So, well, hopefully I still have a job. I still have a job. Angela's dad, if you don't know yet, Angela's dad passed away, and that was very hard. It was a very hard thing, and also I tend to carry my stress in my back. So with all the stress, and it is hard to see your 7-year-old son scream, "No, Papa, wake up, wake up." He was being home cared for. We took him, or I say we, mother-in-law took him and brought him home, and Angela was watching him, and on my days off I'd go over there to their house with Angela. And are you kidding me? The light's green and you're sitting there? Good Lord. So dealing with that, and having to explain it to a 7-year-old, because he was, when we brought him home from the nursing home, Ronnie thought that he was getting better, and he kept saying, he goes, "I'm so glad Papa's home now and he can have a better life." And he kept saying that Papa was going to get better and take him to Burger King. Here in Norman, Burger King has the biggest play place here in Norman, or the play place that Ronnie enjoys the most. So him and his Papa used to go all the time to Burger King, and Papa would just sit there for an hour or so, just let Ronnie run around and play. And so that went on, and then, like I said, I carry all my stress in my back, and my back went out on me. I mean, hurt. It hurt to do anything. Like, literally, I would lay down and it'd feel good, and then after laying down for 5-10 minutes, it would start to hurt, so I'd have to move to a different position, and I could not get comfortable. And it took about a week for that, just pounding prescription muscle relaxers and just trying to get that taken care of. But that's why I said hope I still have a job, because it's been like 2 weeks since I've been to work. But that's not the topic of this video. Oh, my beard. I didn't brush it when I got out of the shower. Well, it did, but I was in a hurry. But no, the topic of this video is remembering Dad. My father-in-law. But it got to the point I would call him Dad and refer to him as Dad. And my mother-in-law, I refer to her as Mom. And so, it's, I don't know, just easier. Instead of saying mother-in-law, I could just say Mom. But yeah, so if I refer to Dad or Mom in this context, I'm referring to my in-laws. So, I'm going to tell you some stories about Dad. I remember the first time I didn't really meet him. First time, I guess, saw him, Angela did introduce us that time. Okay, but the first time that I met him, okay, the very, very first time I met him, didn't really talk long. And, okay, so Angela and I worked together at Hobby Lobby. She was my immediate supervisor, and on Saturdays she would open. And it got to the point where she would open and close on Saturdays, because her parents always watched Austin on the weekend. So it got to the point where she would open and close so that her and I could work together. And literally, we would all do the same areas, because she wasn't scheduled to work overtime, so she didn't have a scheduled section because she was the customer service manager, worked in the front with the cashiers, made the cashier schedule. Well, all the employees had a certain area they had to, what we call front. You had to make sure that they were neat, no misplaced items. You had to take the returns for that section and put them and move all the packages to the front so there weren't, gaps between the front. You're not going to go around me, and it's not me going slow, it's the people in front of me. This car keeps hopping over on the shoulder, acting like I'm going slow. But we would do that, and she'd always just follow me along, and I'm not follow me. We would always work the same section, and we would talk because she had the front of by the registers, and she would knock that out before we even closed. But and Saturdays were the worst because normally, okay, why does everyone go so freaking slow? Speed limit 70, barely made it to 50. And it's only that right lane. That's how you drive. But Saturdays, because Hobby Lobby's closed on Sundays, and Saturdays was when the manager of the whole store, whoever was the head manager working on Saturday, usually rotated, they would have to do inventory and stuff like that and for the week. And so we'd be in there the longest. And we also had to set up the cell tags and all that stuff. So we'd be in there the longest. Usually hour and a half after you closed. Saturdays you could be there for 3 hours, 3-4 hours. And you close at 9. So usually you'd get out of there. Usually midnight was they closed at 8, I believe. Yeah, closed at 8. So midnight was, late getting out of there. I think about this time, 11:30, 11:45. And we just were walking together, and all the employees had to park in a certain section. So we were talking and just standing out there talking, just standing in the parking lot around our vehicles, just talking. And we just kept talking, and Angela always had her cell phone on silent at work, and so she hadn't taken it off silent, and we were talking, and then all of a sudden it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're just standing in the parking lot at Hobby Lobby in Norman talking. All of a sudden this car drives up, and she looks, and it's her dad in the car. Well, when he sees us just standing there talking, he got a big old smile on his face. And I like to joke with Angela because at that time, because of stuff that was going on and stuff, she had moved back in with her parents. And I kind of joke with Angela, not so much, but I kind of joke with Angela that he was smiling because Angela was talking to a guy that would get her out of the house. But yeah, he had a big old smile on his face, and I understand that. At first the smile was creepy because I was like, this guy's just looking at me smiling. And there's something intimidating about her dad, like his physical presence. Like, I mean, he's the nicest guy. Never said a mean word to me. Never heard him. He would tell me stories from when he was younger. But he just had that kind of build for an old man. You knew that if something went down, he could handle himself and would do anything necessary to handle himself. Which I'll tell you later on in this what I learned about him. But he was just smiling, and Angela goes, oh, and grabbed her phone out of her smock that she was holding and goes, oh my gosh, I have so many missed calls. And then told me, she goes, yeah, Dad, this is Matt. We work together. We've just been talking. And so that was the first time I met him. Second time I met him was I was showing up at her parents' house to pick her up because, like I said, she lived at home with her parents at the time. Just stuff that had been going on. And so I was showing up there to pick her up for a date. And, like a gentleman should when you pick a lady up for a date, I had flowers. I had stopped at a store and got flowers. And I go up to the front door with the flowers, didn't pull outside and blare on the horn, be like, no, I went up to the front door with the flowers and rang the doorbell, and her dad answers the phone. And when he answered the phone, Austin's dog, Teacup, came sprinting out of the house. And Angela took off after Teacup. So I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't know if we were boyfriend and girlfriend by this point. I mean, we'd hung out a couple times. I don't think we'd even kissed yet. But, yeah, hung out a couple times. So I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, what do? Do I just stand here and be a jerk while I watch the girl that I like, that I want to become my girlfriend, run around the neighborhood? Or do I go help her? And so I turned to help her, and I realized I'm holding flowers. So I handed them to her dad and go, here you go. Handed him the flowers. He took the flowers, and then I took off running after a Teacup, and I caught him, and we come back, and the flowers are sitting there on a table in the living room, and she goes, oh, flowers, and picks them up. She goes, they're beautiful. And then on the way out, she's like, thank you for the flowers. And I go, well, technically I gave them to your dad. So and I talked to her dad a little bit then, but the first time I actually met her dad, I gave him flowers. So that's a pretty, I find it hilarious. And I joke with Angela, I'm like, that's why your dad likes me so much. It's because I gave him flowers. Okay, so now you want to speed up. When I go to pass you, then you speed up to the speed limit. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, okay, so yeah, you speed up to the speed limit when I go to get around you, and the second we run into other cars, you slow back down below the speed limit. Yeah. So, yeah, I gave her dad flowers. I say the first time I met him, but I forgot that we were introduced that first night. And then, of course, Angela and I got married. By the point we really started dating, she was had already moved out. She'd only been with her parents not even a year. It's just circumstances and stuff. But she had moved out, and I was basically spending all my time with her at her place. So we decided to get married, and her dad, I don't know who was happier at the wedding. Like me, I was scared. I mean, I was terrified at the wedding. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining this girl's life. Oh my gosh, I'm ruining this girl's life. I just kept thinking that. And then when I saw her, I just broke down in tears. And she's not bawling, but she was walking down the aisle. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful. But her, I don't know who had the biggest smile on her face, her or her dad. And yeah. But the more I got to know him, he loved Andre the Giant. I mean, he would talk about Andre the Giant, and he would always tell jokes. And this is the joke I remember him telling the most. It was, okay. You gotta understand, here in Oklahoma, Les Miles was the coach at LSU, but he used to be the coach at Oklahoma State. Okay, and then Barry Switzer, the king. He was a coach at Oklahoma, brought us, back into the national spotlight after Bud Wilkerson had left. Not immediately after, but and he's also the winningest coach in Dallas Cowboys history. By winningest, I mean winning percentage. He has really, you hop into the left lane just to slow down. I don't like people. But so he would always tell this joke. He would say, okay, there's 2 car dealerships, one owned by Les Miles and one owned by Barry Switzer. Which one do you buy a car from? And we live in Norman, Oklahoma, so everyone, would always say, well, Barry Switzer, of course. And he would come back and say, no, you always want the car with Les Miles. So, yeah, I remember, and he would just crack up at that. He would show me his guitar, his named Margaret, which was a female mannequin, torso mannequin. So it went from about mid-thigh up to the neck. And he made that into a guitar. He named Margaret. He would show me Margaret and tell me stories about him playing in the Nashville clubs and about how the things he would do. Okay, now this is getting a little ridiculous. Okay, the speed limit is 60. You're in the left lane on the highway. Oh, and now you hit your... Oh my gosh. We're in the left lane on the highway, speed limit 60, you're going 58 in the left lane, and then you hit your brakes to slow down to 50. Get your freaking head down out of your phone and drive. Good Lord. Yes, I know technically I'm on my phone. Okay. Oh no, they had their head straight down. Okay. But he loved Andre the Giant. I wish I could remember his name. He was a wrestler at Oklahoma back in the day. World famous wrestler. I mean, I think the guy was like undefeated. But he had an extra tendon in his forearm, and he talked about how he would see him in Norman, and people just bring him stuff to crush. Like he would take a pair of pliers and just squeeze the handles and crush them. He would go and just grab car doors and rip them off at junkyards and stuff. And I mean, he loved fighting sports. He got into boxing when he was younger, and he was into weightlifting. He used to tell me that they couldn't find enough weights, so him and his friends would go to the junkyards and lift engines, put chains on engines and lift them up off the ground to lift weights, because they couldn't find enough weights to lift. So they'd go to the junkyard and lift engines as weights. And yeah, he would. But I mean, like I said, I never heard him, badmouth anybody or anything like that. He did tell me a story, which I found out that, okay, first I want to say that he gave me the greatest gift any man can give another man. He gave me his daughter. And unfortunately for me, she inherited his temper. She's going to get on to me for that. But no, he had a temper. And but he was always a protector. But he had a temper. If he was considered you a friend, unless you did something just outright to cross him or his family, you would be a friend for life. And he told me this story about they were in Nashville. Angela was a toddler, and she was bouncing a ball in their apartment, and the guy downstairs took a broom and started slamming it, poking the ceiling and screaming for them to shut up. Oh, he went out on the balcony and screamed for the guy to come out there and told the guy that his daughter was playing, and if he ever yelled at his daughter again, he was gonna, But yeah, he told me that story, not to like threaten me or anything, just told me with his Nashville stories. And yeah, also he loved his wife. I mean, loved his wife, loved his daughter, loved his grandkids. I mean, his grandkids, he would bend over backwards for his grandkids. I mean, do anything for his grandkids, anything at all. I mean, just anything for his grandkids. And I mean, he honestly, and I'm not just saying this. I mean, I spent 7 years in the Marine Corps. Played football for years, wrestled, all that stuff. I've known people that got blown up in IEDs. I mean, all this. But he was the toughest, the absolute single most toughest man I've ever known in my life. I mean, he's had 3 experiences that the doctors flat out said, you know, he's not going to survive. One of them, when he was a kid, they had a pointed stick that they were using to see how far they could jump. And one kid did it, and they marked how far he could jump with the stick, and the stick had a point on the end. I think it was like a stake or something. Well, when he went to jump, he landed on that, his feet hit that stick, and it went up, and went up. I mean, up. So, it Vlad the Impaler style. You know, I mean, it wasn't a big, long stick, but it went up into him. And, from everything I've heard, the doctor told his mom he wasn't going to survive. I mean, he was just a young kid at the time. And he said he was sitting there hearing this, that he wasn't going to live. Well, he lived. And then there was a time when I think he was a teenager or something, and got in a motor vehicle accident and got messed up pretty bad, and was told that he was not going to live. And he survived. And then also the injury that caused him to ultimately have to go to a nursing home, and then all that. Just before Ronnie was born, we were pregnant with Ronnie, and we were trying to pick out Ronnie's name, and his papa's name is Ronnie, and we named him after his papa because of what I'm about to tell you. He was on, I think it was a 10-foot ladder. They have big vaulted ceilings in the living room, and he was putting the vanity plate on the ceiling fan, the top of the ceiling fan, because big, huge vaulted ceilings. And it was a wooden ladder, and he's standing on the top of it, you know, reach and try and put that, and the ladder broke. The leg of the ladder broke, and he fell and went head first into the corner of the coffee table. Had a brain swelling on the brain, fractured his skull. They had to actually remove a big chunk of his skull to relieve the swelling in his brain. He was in a coma, and the doctors, I mean, I heard the doctors say this, that not only was he not going to live, but the doctors said there was a 0% chance he even wakes up out of the coma. And so yeah, they're doing construction on this road. They said he wouldn't even wake up. And then, of course, he woke up, and they go, okay, well, he's awake, but he's never going to talk or be able to communicate. And then he started talking, and then, you know, well, he's never going to be able to walk or function. Before Ronnie was even a year old, maybe around him being a year old, he was driving and doing all that stuff. And it was slow. I mean, he had a traumatic brain injury. I mean, it's actually traumatic brain injury, and that's what led to the dementia / Alzheimer's, because his brain was so damaged that it just quit working. And so we, when the doctor said that he was not going to live, Angela was like, "Can we name our son after our dad?" I'm like, absolutely. Like, I was actually thinking the same thing. And so that's why we have Big Ronnie and Little Ronnie. And yeah, so that story's on Dad. And I have a lot more, but this is already 25 minutes and I'm pulling into work. And so, yeah, and I found out a lot more about him, talking to his best friend, who was like a brother to him. Found out a lot more about him, and I had stories that he hadn't even heard that Dad had told me. And so, yeah. All right, well, I'm going to say goodbye.